Hi, I'm Rachel and welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be a reading vlog. So sorry there wasn't a reading vlog last week. I'll get to why in a moment. But I've got a few books that I've picked up this week. So I have picked up another James Patterson, which is Merry Christmas Alex Cross. I'm trying to collect all the Alex Cross books. And so this was only 50p, so I thought, right, I can add it to my collection. And then I picked up this one, which is by Lisa Jewell, Watching You. Now, I was a massive fan of Lisa Jewell's writing back in the day. I started off with a book called something Melody. I'll link it on the screen. I forgot what it's called. And that was one of my favourite books by Lisa Jewell. I loved her writing style and everything. And I think I've read 30 something. Another one about a courtyard. I forgot what they're called. I'll try and link them down below, the books I've read in Lisa Jewell, the ones I recommend. And then she turned into like a thriller writer. And then when she went into the thriller writers, I just didn't like her writing style. She'd proper changed her writing style and I just didn't get on with it. So I picked this up because I started reading it and I started reading the first page and I was like, this reminds me of Lisa Jewell's writing style. So hopefully I get on with this. I got that one. So they're my two books I found this week. So getting back to my reading vlog last week, I went into a bit of a reading slum and I didn't read anything else after I finished this. This book, wow, not for me. So on my latest reading vlog, I had given this a 3-star so far. I'd read 3 months, which are like 3 chapters because this is set in a diary form. So you've got January, February and March. And I was liking how it was getting set out with the characters. You were finding out more about Brian, the protagonist, about his backstory, about his work, about his clubs and everything. And I was like, right, this is getting set up to be a really good story. Really, it doesn't do much else. So this man, this Brian, is such a negative Nelly and I just couldn't bear it any longer. Yes, he's not in the greatest mindset, and yes, he's not got the greatest job, and obviously he's divorced, but he just couldn't see any good in anything. So for instance, him and his wife are split up and Sophie's moved on with a man called Stuart, and they've got a child called Dylan who is 16. Dylan gets made head coach at his football team and he can't even be happy for his son. He just thinks of oh, that means extra football sessions, or oh, that means I'm having to stand on the line and watch my own son. When his son starts doing really well in his education and he wants his dad to help him with his homework, even that's like a major chore. It's like, oh really, do I have to be doing this? He can't be bothered to feed him correctly. It's like a cheap meal. It's like beans on toast or something. Everything is just all about him. He never thinks about anyone else apart from himself. He attends a book club. He buys the book, has all the intentions to read the book. He never reads the book. He's a really good poet. He attends a poetry club. One of the men in his poetry club called Toby gets to get one of his poems published, and even that just sends him over edge basically. It's like, instead of seeing that as an incentive of well, if he can do it, I can do it, it's like jealousy and envious, and it's just not a nice feeling to have. Yeah, and I couldn't cope with it any longer. Basically, I was just at the end of, by the time I'd got probably into June, I was just reading it for the poems, because the poems in here are absolutely stunning. Some of the poems, like I previously said, you need an English degree to understand them. Some of them are just poems where you can't believe another human being has wrote these, because they're stunning. And then some of them are just short little poems which make you laugh and make you smile and make you happy. After I'd finished this book, well, I didn't really finish it, I basically read the poems. I looked up him, and he's quite famous over on Twitter. Some of his poems had gone viral, and I think because of that, he got a book deal. The poems in here, amazing. The storytelling, dismal. I just did not enjoy it at all. And I just didn't want to pick anything else up. So it took me ages and ages, and then I found this, which is the 3rd book in the James Patterson Michael Bennett series, which is called Worst case. This has got to be one of my favourites in the 3 books I've read in the series so far. I really liked how the killer in this was quite different from the other 2 killers. And what I mean by that is they weren't there for power, they weren't there for money, they weren't there for the adrenaline or like like the light killing kind of thing. This was because this kidnapper, killer, actually genuinely thought that by killing wealthy children that he was doing good. I don't want to tell you more about backstory if you want to read this, but he genuinely thought that killing these children was helping the world and these charities, what he truly believed in. You know early on why the killer wants to do what he is doing, but you don't know what his next move is, and there's no link directly between the children and just that they are wealthy. There's 2 good twists in this book, which there was no breadcrumbs leading up to it. You can't read back and think, actually that's, yeah, there wasn't anything like that. Yeah, and then we've got this other character in here called Emily Parker. So Emily Parker is part of the FBI, and she comes over to New York especially for this case, because at this moment there's been 2 killings and they don't know what the next killing is going to be or who it's going to be or what the links are. So the FBI comes in, and Emily and Mike have a bit of a flirtation between them, and I really like that aspect, like, of Mike and how he's trying to navigate this, whatever this is kind of thing, after obviously losing his wife in the first book. So yeah, overall an amazing book, brilliant twist, brilliant writing style, so fast paced. Like, this is a book where I felt like I was taking my time with it. I could have easily read this in one sitting. Anytime I had any free space, I had this book in my hand. Chris was filling up the petrol station. Chris was filling up the car on Sunday after I come back from my parents, and I was reading this. I can't really read in the car, but even then I was trying to sneak some reading in, because I wanted to know more about it. But I did finish it on Monday. Loved it. So I finished that on Monday, and today is Tuesday. So earlier on in the year I picked up this book, which is Widow by Fiona Barton, and I put it down to pick up something else, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to pick this up because I was quite enjoying the concept of this. So this is about Jean Taylor. Jean Taylor thinks that she's got the marriage what everyone else wants. She thinks that she's married to a Prince Charming called Glyn, and then Glyn is the #1 suspect of something. We don't know what it is as a reader, and he's all over the papers. He's like the #1 monster, and Jean cannot believe that Glenn is this monster. She cannot see it, and then Glenn dies. That's not a spoiler, it tells you on the back of the book. And then she realises that when she's on her own, that actually her marriage isn't what she thinks it has been. She thinks that she's been suppressed as a woman. She feels that things which Glenn did at the time felt normal, but looking back are actually like not normal. So it's her time now to be able to speak freely, to be the person she wants to be, kind of thing. So that's the concept of this book. I'm only on chapter 6, which is page 46. This is told in 2 timelines. So the first timeline is Jean after the death of Glenn, and she's at her home and there's paparazzi outside wanting the first scoop of her side of the story. And then the other timeline is you have just found out that there is a kidnapping of a young girl, and there's been a man spotted in the neighbourhood. So that's where we are. I'm guessing that Glenn has kidnapped the girl. That's all I am assuming at this moment in time. So we'll see what I think. So far, so good. Good morning, it's Wednesday. So I read another chapter of my book last night, and before I've headed to work, I've read another one. And I've got to say, I'm really loving this. I'm loving the concept of this book. I'm loving the dual timelines. I'm loving how the author is just giving us enough information to keep wanting to know more. It's a bit of a slower pace than what I've previously read, but I am thoroughly enjoying it. I can't see at the moment how all this is going to unfold, basically, and I'm really intrigued about it. Does Jean know about Glenn? Is that the twist, that actually Jean knew more than what she let on, or was it domestic violence? You just don't know. There's like, is that the twist? There is one of the main characters in here is the reporter, Kate. She was there when Bella, the little girl, went missing. She reported it first, and she has a good relationship with Bob, who is the detective in this. And Kate has just taken Jean out of her house into a hotel to get away from the paparazzi. And Kate's one of these reporters where she's very good at her job. She knows how to get a story. She's made Jean feel like an amazing woman. She's doing the right thing. Let's get away. Let's get away from your house where all the paparazzi are. Let's make you feel relaxed. Let's take you. And the way she interviews is it's very informal. And we'll see how much Jean gives information. I'm back from work and I picked up some more books. I went into a little shop which sells everything, and it had a little table inside with loads of second-hand books, and they were raising money for a local charity. So I had a little look on the books, what they were selling. It would be rude not to end at day, and I picked up these were only 20p a book. I did give a higher donation for them, but they were up for 20p, which I thought was an absolute steal. So let's talk you through them. So the first one that caught my eye was this one by Peter James, The Perfect Murder. This is a little novella. Now, Peter James is an author which has been recommended to me because I'm a fan of James Patterson's writing. Then I would probably like Peter James's writing. I do own 2 of Peter James's book, which I bought second hand from a charity shop. So I thought this would be ideal to like see what his writing style is, see if he is like James Patterson, and that's why I picked this up. And if I do like this book, then I know that I can look out for some more Peter James's books in the future. Then this one is The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas. This is everyone knows the story about this. Grace has actually danced to a piece of music which was inspired by Boys in the Striped Pyjamas. And I can remember doing some English work regarding this book when it overlapped English and history. So I picked it up just in case the children at any time are learning about this. We've got the book, and it was something which I will read because it is quite short, but it is a very compelling read. Next one is The Confessions of Franny Langton. So Franny Langton was originally from Jamaica, and she got taken over to London in 1826 to be the maid for Mr. and Mrs. Bentham, and now she's up for their murder, and apparently it's not what you seem it to be. There's a lot behind this. A lot of people have said that this book is very stunning, it's beautifully written, and it's just a gorgeous book. And this cover is absolutely gorgeous. Look at those end pages, stunning. So I'm really intrigued to read this book. This one caught my eye ages ago when it came out originally in 2019, I think it was. And this is The Beekeeper of Alpeto. And apparently if you enjoyed The Tattooist of Auschwitz, then you'd like this kind of writing style. And I have read The Tattooist of Auschwitz, which was a compelling read, heartbreaking book, which I'm so pleased I did read because it gives you a more of an insight to the awful things what happened at Auschwitz. And this is about a man and his wife fleeing the Syrian city of Aleppo. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm probably butchering it. I will find out the proper term, how you say it, before I read the book. And it's about their story basically. So that's all I know about it. And sometimes it's nice going into a book where you don't know much about it, you just know a little bit. So hopefully I'll pick that up soon. The final book is this one, which is Dachshund Through the Snow by David Rosenfeld. So I initially picked this up for my mother-in-law Michelle because she loves nothing more than a Christmas novel and a furry friend, and this is something which I wouldn't have necessarily picked up because I'm not the biggest fan of books centred around dogs or pets or anything like that. It's just not for me personally. And now I should remind myself never to judge a book by a character, because I thought this would be like all about the dog kind of thing. But then when I've read the synopsis, it tells a completely different story, and honestly I'm so excited to pick this up in late November, early December. But this book is about a lawyer called Andy and his wife called Laurie, and they have a Christmas tradition where they enter the local pet shop because it has a Christmas tree in there. Instead of ornaments, it has Christmas wishes from the local community, and one of the Christmas wishes which catches their eye this year is from a local boy called Danny. Danny is asked for a coat for his mum, a new sweatshirt for his Dachshund, and also for a safe return of his missing father. Danny's father doesn't want to be found because he's on the run for a murder which he swears, and also Danny's mum swear, he never committed. So this is about Andy trying to discover the truth and try and reunite Danny back with his dad for Christmas. It's meant to be very humorous. It's meant to be a cozy book, a very light read. And it's Thursday, and last night I did quite a bit of reading and it was lovely. So I picked up this book, which is the Peter James The Perfect Murder. It's only 126 pages. I thought it was a lot longer than that, but the other part of this book is a few chapters from a new book what was coming out at the same time as this book when this was first published. So I was like, 126 pages, an hour, and it'd be done with. And I'm glad it was done with because this is not to do with Peter James's writing style or anything like that, because I think the writing style and how he puts a book together in a longer novel could be better. But I just didn't like this story. So this is about Victor and Joan. Victor and Joan are husband and wife. They first got together and it was love at first sight. They met at a dance, on a dance floor in like a strictly come dancing style, what's it called, ballroom dancing, that's the word. And they connected and they were amazing. They had all these plans, what they wanted to do, and children were on the cards as well. Unfortunately, they couldn't have children. And I think from that moment on is where their marriage broke down. And instead of like being adults and looking at that situation and seeing what they wanted to do, they both blamed each other, and that's when the relationship became pure evil and pure nasty. And I just couldn't relate to it because it's so far-fetched, and like Victor was just, oh, he just made your skin crawl. Every time he said something, I was like, ick. Like, it really made my skin crawl. For instance, they were at a restaurant and he wanted a prawn cocktail, and for a starter, and the waiter said, "We don't have a prawn cocktail on the menu, sir." And he's like, "Yeah, just like blowjobs are not on the menu at home." And I was like, ugh. And like you could see like Joan going redder and redder. Now that doesn't mean that Joan is innocent in this, because they are both evil and disgusting humans. So you've got Victor, who is verbally disgusting, doesn't do anything around the house, is very much of a slob, he likes detective programs, and he's getting his kick at a little parlour just out of town, where he's having a relationship. Well, I won't say a relationship, he's paying for things, and he's having his little kick there. And obviously Joan doesn't know, and Joan is having her little kick with a cabbie driver. So they're both not innocent and they're both absolutely disgusting. But without them both knowing, they are both plotting each other's murder. So you've got Victor, who's taking out a huge life policy over Joan, but realises that it has to be very sneaky because this could look like it's an insurance scam. So he's got this policy in place, and he plans that in a year's time it won't look as suspicious if he kills her in a year's time. However, he loses his job, realises that he's got to do it sooner than later. And then you've got Joan, on the other hand, who is just brutal. She basically knows that Victor has diabetes, and he puts him in a coma. I forgot what they're called. A diabetic coma, is it? A diabetic coma. So he's like knocked out. And then what she does is she goes to the garage, gets an axe, and beats him over the head with his axe. Dom, who is her partner, not even a partner because he's already married, but like her bit on the side, comes and rescues her, takes all the evidence away, and then they come up with a plan where they are going to tell the police that he's gone missing. But the plan has got so many holes, like the mobile phone, what she said that she's rang him loads of times on, it's in the house. The police become sus. They do a ram raid on the house and find that the body there's been a body basically cut up in this house, and then Joan then decides that to blame Dom about it, because she knows that Dom has got the van where they put the body in the freezer to put it in the van. He's got the van, and also he's got the actual weapon, because he's wiped all her prints off it, but obviously left his prints on by mistake. And he gets done for murder, and she's getting done for attempted murder. But she's quite happy about it, because she knows that after a stint in jail, she'll be out. However, unbeknown to Jean, Victor, the sly little fox, before his death, decided to paint the room, and in the room he put in a poison which over time, when you inhale this poison, you will die basically. And Joan even goes into the spare room, because Victor always snores. And then on one occasion, after Victor has died, she goes into the room for the final time, and then the author says she finally drifts away. So basically, they both kill each other, and that is it. And that is the story. And the writing was just pure nastiness. Like, the story of itself wasn't for me, and you could see what was coming. It wasn't like there was a massive twist at the end. You could just see where this was ending. So I'm glad to get it off my shelf. Peter James, still got a huge question mark whether I want to go forward with the other two books. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a few chapters of one of his books, and just to see if it's the same kind of writing style. At least now I know what to kind of expect, and just to see if this is his thing, because for me it's not for me at all. Then moving from that, I went back into this, and I'm on page 116 pages now. Now this is very, very dark. You know something's happened, but there's no concept at the back that you know what's going to happen in here. This is about paedophiles, sex offenders. It is very dark, so warning about this book. I'm liking how the story is developing. I'm really liking the concept of the book. I'm really enjoying the detective side of it. And then when we go back to the journalist Kate, I'm not as interested in it, but I'm intrigued to see what Jean has got to say, and her side of the story. And then when it goes back into the detective, which is 3 years later, earlier even, I'm really intrigued with it. So we'll see how it goes. I'm invested. So it's Sunday, Sunday morning. The house is nice and quiet. Max is out playing football. Grace is in her bedroom. Chris is with Max, obviously. So it's been nice and quiet this morning, and I've finished my book, The Widow by Fiona Barton. So this was very, very dark. Lots of trigger warnings with this book going into this. Child abuse, child porn, very dark world you enter, and you don't know a lot about that coming into this, so I just thought I'd warn you about it. There was parts of this book when those kind of things were mentioned where I had to skim read it because I felt violently sick. So this is a very complex relationship, or marriage should I say, between Jean and Glenn, and it's basically about, do you truly know each other and what, so you can be together, but then do you know actually what your other half is doing? Would you know telltale signs if your husband was or partner or something was doing things which you wouldn't know? But what Glenn was doing was absolutely disgusting, and the way he belittled Jean and made her feel like she was no one. She lost her confidence, she lost who she was as a person, and she believed everything Glenn did or said. Glenn was like her world. He basically held the strings to his little puppet of a wife, and it was only when Glenn died that she realised that she's stronger than who she thinks. Now Jean's got her own problems going off in this book, and she's no angel whatsoever. Interesting to know about Kate, who is the reporter, about who reports the whole thing. It was really good to see an insight of how the police and the papers work together, and how the papers develop a story, and about the headlines and all that. That was really fascinating to find out. It was fascinating how police officers, because obviously this is based in the UK, and the previous books I've been reading about American, whereas this is UK, how the average police officer can just come home and not switch off like constantly, and how it affects his life kind of thing. I like that aspect of it. The whole overall book was really, really good, but it was very, I think it was too dark for me. I didn't get, every time I picked it up I had this like, oh, I'm going back into this kind of thing, and I just thought this kind of thriller, I just know that this is not my type of book. It was too dark, and so I gave it a full 4-star because it's a book which there were so many different elements of it I did enjoy reading. I was really interested in it, but it just didn't have the ending. It didn't have, it built it up too much, and then the ending I think was like, okay, it just felt flat at the end. You got all this build up, all this, and then it just became, oh. So yeah, 4 stars. So I think for the time being I need some really nice friendly stories, a little bit of love, romance kind of thing. So I'm going to be reading this book next, which is Rachel's Pudding Pantry, and it's spelt the way my name's spelt as well, E-L, not A-E-L. This is by Caroline Roberts. So this is not the kind of genre of book I normally tend to go to, but I'm only picking this one up because I want to read this one over the Christmas festive time, and you need to read, you've got to have read this one to have read this one. So because of that I'm going to read this, and apparently it's like very cozy and uplifting, so I'm going to sit and read this near the fire with the candles on this Sunday morning, and see how I get on, and then I'll update you how I've got on about it, and then I'll end this, and you'll find out my thoughts and feelings next week. So just a little bit about this. This is about Rachel, who has the Primrose Farm, and she loves this farm to bits, but things need to change to try and keep the farm still afloat, it's basically putting the wellies aside and putting on an apron and seeing how that bit goes. So I'm really invested in this. I can't wait. A bit of a cosy book, uplifting, something light-hearted. I think that's what I personally need. Oh my goodness me, this book, I have just wept. I've just pulled myself together. Wow. The book itself, it's not cry worthy, but it's bringing back lots of memories, and I think because my name's mentioned here. So basically, this is Rachel, who is who works on the farm, who lives on the farm, and she lives with her mum, and she's got a daughter as well. And there's a scene in here where it says they sat together at the old pine table that had been the focus of so many family meals and celebrations over the years, Christmases, birthdays and anniversaries, where they shared stories of their days and lives, and as late where they had shared their tears. That broke me, because I can remember baking with my grandma, and my grandma's house always smelled of baking. Like, the smells at my grandma's house weren't fantastic, and she was an amazing baker. Like, the stuff she can make, like she made these Anzac biscuits, and as much as my mum tries to make them, they're nowhere as near as how good my grandma's was. And the pine table mentioned in this is my grandma had a big pine table which was in her kitchen, and we'd all congregate around it and watch my grandma bake and talk, and then wait for the things to be able to be eaten. And that pine table I have got now at in my dining room. I don't know, I think it was just a bit of nostalgia. My grandma's got dementia, and I think this just brought some really happy memories back, which have been stored away for a while. My mum is an amazing baker. I haven't followed the gene, unfortunately, so it stops with me. And seeing my daughter have the same baking experience what I had with my grandma with her mum. Yeah, wow. I didn't expect it to be, and I'm only on chapter 1, so good luck to me for this. Oh, but so far it is a very cosy, uplifting book, and I'm going to stop it here because yeah, so far I think it's a book which I need to read, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where this leads, and then I'll be really excited then for the Christmas book to read over the Christmas time. So I hope you've enjoyed this reading vlog. As always, sending huge positive thoughts. See you soon. Bye.